All right, today we're previewing Jarrett Allen. And I'm going to be honest with you, this might be the easiest preview that we've done so far because Jarrett Allen, for how much hate that he gets online, he's really one of the most consistent players on the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, you basically know night in, night out what you're going to get from Jarrett Allen. You'll have some variants that can be annoying both ways, right? There's times where Allen gets beat up on the glass and he looks lost one-on-one against a perimeter player or something, and we'll all get annoyed when that happens. But then there's the other side where even sometimes when Jarrett Allen dominates a game and he'll put up like 22 points and 15 rebounds, you'll feel a little frustrated because you're like, why can't you always do that? And so overall, I do think Allen is a way more helpful player to this team than he is harmful, despite what his reputation can be at times. And I think the last two seasons have proven that. So for today's preview, I want to recap where Allen is in his career, who he is as a player today, and then we'll lay down some expectations for him in the upcoming season and just a few long-term things that he can still get better at. So with Allen, I think it's common for us to kind of overlook the development that he's had into becoming, a guy who's made the all-star team and is a borderline all-star most years just because his skill set seems to be so one-dimensional, right? At the end of the day, he is basically just a rim running big, but I do think he's developed into being one of the best all-around players who fit that archetype, right? So if you're thinking about the big men who aren't, these high-level offensive players like Jokic or Embiid or something otherworldly like those guys, then Allen is as good of a center as any other role-playing big man. For those rim-running guys, Allen's about as well-rounded as you can be. He's athletic. He can play that fast-paced, up-tempo game. He moves his feet really well on defense, but he's also good in the half-court setting too. He's an automatic bucket at the rim. He shot 70% from the floor last year. That led all NBA players. And like I said, he's a really good rim protector. He's a pretty great deterrent. I don't think he gets enough credit for that because he shares the floor with Mobley, but he does a great job anchoring Cleveland's defense. And listen, we all understand that he's maybe not an elite rebounder, but he's definitely better than he gets credit for. And more often than not, he is cleaning the glass for this Cleveland Cavalier team. And so the playoffs are where his reputation really gets hurt. And it's mainly because of that one series that's burned in our minds. But if you ignore that series and you just combine his playoff averages from the last two seasons, then in those games, Allen is averaging 15 points, 10 rebounds, 1 block, 1 steal, and he's shooting above 70% from the floor in those games. I really don't know how much more you could ask for or how much more you could want from your fourth or maybe even your fifth most important player at this point. With that said, I do think the area that we all focus on is his physicality in big games. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that there haven't been times where Allen is kind of a no-show when the lights are brightest. He is prone to fading into the background in games where if you had a monster performance from Allen, then it could tilt the scales, right? There's games where the Cavs, they're having trouble from the three-point line, and you're thinking, you're just begging, like, Allen, if you could grab some extra possessions or just make your presence felt in the paint, it could tilt this game for us, but that doesn't always happen. To be fair, sometimes it does. I think we overlook the times where it has happened. The first two games against Orlando 2 years ago, and then in game 2 against Indiana this year. Look, guys, I mean, if you look at that box score, he scored 22 points. He had 12 rebounds and 3 blocks without Evan Mobley out there in game 2. The Cavs nearly won that game. The offensive rebounds that Indiana got at the end of the game when they completed their miracle comeback, that had nothing to do with Allen. And so we should have been able to look back at game 2 and against Indiana and have that be one of the games where Allen showed up big in a huge moment. But of course, we all know what happened. They dropped the ball. They choked that at the end. And I know some people might think that right now I'm just making excuses for Allen. I want to be clear that's definitely not the case. Again, he's had some really bad moments in the playoffs. In games 4 and 5 last year against Indiana, he had just 6 total rebounds. He only shot the ball 7 times across both games combined. That's obviously not good. I'm not going to hide it. We all understand that he didn't show up in those moments, but I've had this take for a while. To me, Allen is a player who, when the system around him is intact, he can be a super effective role player who at times even crosses that threshold into being an all-star player, as we've seen. But he's not a guy who on his own is going to drag his team out of the mud. It's just not his archetype. He is just a rim running big, as I said. It's not something that I would expect Allen to do really at any point in his career, take this team out of a rut, single-handedly carry them to a playoff win. And that's just what it is, right? Allen, next season, I'm expecting him to just be that steady presence who, again, shows up, does his job 90% of the time. You're going to have that 5% where, he goes above and beyond. You're going to have the other 5% where you'll wonder if he's even on the court sometimes. But more often than not, Allen's going to give you a solid double-double. He's going to play good defense in the paint. He'll hold the zone as much as you can reasonably expect on the perimeter for a big man, but he's not going to do anything too crazy one way or the other. I think the spacing that Cleveland had last season made it so that Allen and Mobley could really thrive next to each other for the first time, even offensively. They answered a lot of big questions in that regard. And if they can find a way to tap back into their defensive identity without sacrificing too much of that offense they found, then I think you have an argument that this is the best double big lineup in the NBA. For me, the big key is going to be the system that's around Allen. As I said, if the spacing is bad, or the Cavs are just giving up way too many switches and leaving Allen on an island all day, then things could go south. And if you have another season where things go south in the playoffs with Allen, then that would probably mean that he's going to get traded this time next year. But I also think there's a good possibility that the Cavs, they're just going to be a great regular season team again. Allen's going to play a key role in that. And if everyone stays healthy in the playoffs and that system is in place, I think they'll go deep in the playoffs, and Allen could really help them there. So we'll have to see what happens there. I also think having Larry Nance Jr. as a backup big this year is really going to help them in regards of, he can ensure that Allen and Mobley are always sharing the floor with some legit size whenever it's needed. That should really help stabilize some of their defensive concerns, especially the rebounding. It should stabilize some of Allen's highs and lows, because I think most of his worst moments come when he's just being beat up as the primary big, and sometimes the guy just needs some help on the glass, all right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I think Larry Nance should be able to help in that. With all that being said, if we're looking long-term, where can Allen still get better? I think if he can continue to become just, 1 to 2% better as a passer and a playmaker. He's shown a little bit with the dribble handoffs and making some good reads there, especially the big-to-big passing with the alley-oops to Mobley. And more importantly, if he can just become more physical and gritty with age, then that would be excellent. I don't think there's going to be a huge leap in Allen's game at this point, but he can still polish some of the finer aspects of his game because he's only 27. So maybe as he gets a little older, he'll become more chiseled. He'll set some better screens. He'll take physicality a little bit better. There's still a lot of room for Allen to get marginally better at specific things, even though there probably won't be another leap. And that's really all I have for this Jarrett Allen preview. Like I said, I think we know more or less what to expect from him. I think he's going to be a steady presence, and we'll just have to see if everything stays in place when the playoffs come around. So thank you for watching my preview. Please don't forget to drop a like, leave me a comment, and hit the subscribe button. And as always, go Cavs.